Hi everyone. So I'm continuing the series of the 500 greatest albums of all time according to Rolling Stone magazine. And so I'm at I'm going from 300 to 201. And as always, I'll let you know which albums I've heard, which albums maybe at some point in my life I did own or I have in my collection. And thank you for everybody that's been commenting. I really appreciate it and liking the video and, of course, subscribing. Here we go. Shania Twain, a Canadian at 300. I actually don't mind her. Not that I've ever bought any of her albums, but, I do like some of her songs. And she's talented. Not my kind of music overall, but I've heard a lot worse. The great B.B. King, I've never owned any of his albums. I'm not really a big blues fan, but I will say that Canned Heat is one of my favorite bands from the late 60s, early 70s. I've only owned Tom Petty's greatest hits, and as I've mentioned before, he's one of the greats. I've just never bought any of his albums, but every song I've heard by him I've thought was really, really good or even excellent. Never heard a bad song by Tom Petty. Peter Gabriel, so yes, as I've mentioned before, I love when Peter Gabriel was in Genesis, and I love his first three solo albums, and then I kind of just lost interest in him. Don't Give Up is a great song, of course, with Kate Bush. But other than that, Sledgehammer, I just thought was okay. And I just for my own personal taste, I just never got into his later solo albums. I have this, and it is a great album. Neil Young, Rust Never Sleeps. I've never owned Daft Punk. Not a big fan of Weezer. They're not, for me, they're a good band, but just not that interested in buying any of their albums. The Breeders, never listened to their music. Yes, I bought this on vinyl when it came out, and it's the only album of theirs that I wouldn't mind having in my collection. It's a great debut album. I don't have any Destiny's Child. I actually owned that back in the day, around the time it came out on vinyl, and I enjoyed it. Outcast. Yeah. Bjork. I've never owned any Bjork albums, but I've heard, through my Patreon, I've heard, I think, two of her albums, and she's great. I've just never bought any of her albums. I did have that on CD at one point. I love Jonathan Richman, and that was a great album. There was a flood in my house years and years ago, and some water damage to some of my CDs, and that's one of the ones that got damaged really good. So I'd like to get that again, though. I've never heard the full album of Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds. Not a big fan of Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think they're a great live band, and I do like some of their hit singles, but that's about it. Big Star, as I've mentioned before, I've heard some of their music, and the documentary on them on Netflix was excellent. I've never heard this album, though. The Great Merle Haggard, Down Every Road. And see, once again, it's one of these stupid compilations. You don't When you're ranking albums, the greatest albums of all time, you don't include compilations, Rolling Stone. Donna Summer, Bad Girls, never owned. Frank Sinatra, In the Wee Small Hours. I actually reacted to, what was it called? Watertown on my Patreon yesterday, the song. It was good. Nilsson Schmilsson. I own Son of Schmilsson, which is my favorite, and I've heard this before. I had it on vinyl back in the day, and it's a great album, a great talent. And there's a great documentary on Nilsson also. No. I've heard some of his music on Spotify, and every other word is the N word, and of course he's always rapping about money and girls, and that's about it. Yeah, I had that on vinyl. I would love to get that on CD sometime. Yes, I own that. Great album. It's not one of my favorite Led Zeppelin albums, but it's still great. Houses of the Holy. Never owned any Alicia Keys. Yes, I have that on CD. I love it. The Bends. Probably my favorite Radiohead album. Curtis Mayfield, I've never owned. Great talent, though. I've never heard Sweetheart of the Rodeo. Yeah, I would like to buy some Gang of Four albums sometime, because what I've heard of them I really do like a lot. Yes, one of my all-time favorite bands and albums, White Light, White Heat, The Velvet Underground. Way Too Low at 272. Shake Your Head. Nope. Nope, never heard. No, thank you. I've tried. I've tried to listen to his music in the past, and I just don't care for it. Yes, I own that. I love Randy Newman. Minutemen. I've done some reactions to them, and I've liked what I've heard, but I've never owned any of their albums. The Beatles' Help. Yes, that's way too low. Any Beatles album is too low. Pavement. I've heard, but not very much of their music. Yes, I own Wish You Were Here. Great album. Way too low again at 264. Way too low. A Hard Day's Night. I like how they say Hard Day's Night when it's a Hard Day's Night. New Order. I've never owned any New Order. Beastie Boys. I used to have their greatest hits compilation. I like them. Sabotage is my favorite Beastie Boys song that I've heard. The Slits. I reviewed this. I did the full album reaction on Patreon recently, and it was pretty good. I think I gave it like a B+, I believe. Pearl, I've never owned any Janis Joplin. I've heard this album, The Hissing of Summer Lawns, Joni Mitchell. Such a great talent. The great Dolly Parton, but I've never owned any of her albums. Tracy Chapman, another great talent, just never bought any of her music. Boom Dylan, the freewheeling Bob Dylan. It's a great album. Herbie Hancock, never owned any of his albums. I love Pink Floyd's The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I love Devo. Yeah, I have their first 3 albums. I used to own that on vinyl. I wouldn't mind having that on CD. Load more. We're halfway through. Never owned any Buzzcocks albums or Whitney Houston. I had that. I think, yeah, probably on CD years and years and years ago, and I liked it. Sade? Nope. LL Cool J? I liked a couple of his songs back in the day. Never listened to them. Nope. Yes, I own that. I love the Zombies. Yep, all 4 of the Velvet Underground albums with Lou Reed. I love. 10 out of 10, all 4 of them. Massive Attack I've never owned. No. Sam Cooke, the great Sam Cooke. Boogie Down Productions, Criminal Minded. So this album is above George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, which is at 368. Okay, Rolling Stone. I have some Kraftwerk. I have Autobahn and Radioactivity, and I've never owned Trans Europe Express. I love that album cover, though. Willie Nelson, never owned. Nope. I did buy that when it came out, but I don't know. It just didn't hold my interest for long. But I respect them as a band. Yes. I have all of the Ozzy Black Sabbath albums. Love them all. Never got into Her. I've tried. John Coltrane. I don't think I've heard a bit of his music, and I think I prefer Miles Davis. The great Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. As I said, one of the greats. Nope. The great Patsy Cline. Just never owned any of her music. De La Soul? Nope. The great Little Richard. I wouldn't mind having a greatest hits of his. I've never owned Derek and the Dominoes, and I never actually even heard the full album until one of our recent album exchanges on my other channel. And I liked it. It was very good, but that's about it. I've never heard Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco. Not into the Dixie Chicks. I have Imagine. I love John Lennon. So Madonna's Ray of Light is better than John Lennon's Imagine. Okay, Rolling Stone. Ray, don't want to see that album cover. Rage Against the Machine, never owned. I have Deja Vu. I love this album. And of course their debut, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Nope. TLC, nope. Never been into Oasis that much. Elliott Smith, I've heard some of his music. Never owned any. American Beauty, not a bad album, but I don't own it. The great Tom Petty, Wildflowers. Never gotten into Fiona Apple. I saw a documentary on her, and it was excellent, but I've never owned any of her albums. Joy Division, just no. Love Will Tear Us Apart is a great song, but other than that, I just never been that interested. The great Ray Charles, never owned any of his music. Run DMC, they were really good. Like I said, Lil Wayne, an album by Lil Wayne is better than George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. The Eagles. The Eagles are a great band. They wrote a lot of great songs, of course, but I don't know. They were just too perfect. They were just not enough to hold my interest. Their albums. I love David Bowie. I have all of his albums, and Low is superb. Almost done. I owned that on vinyl back in the day. Cat Stevens is great. No, thank you. Yeah, I've heard some of this album on Spotify and really impressed with it. I was also listening to Tim Buckley on Spotify the other day, and I really liked what I heard. I checked out his first album and then kind of a few songs from some of the other albums, and I really liked it. Two more. Bjork, as I've mentioned, I've heard a couple of her albums. A great talent, but never owned any of her music. And ending with A Tribe Called Quest, never heard. So that's it. We're more than halfway through this 500 greatest albums of all time according to Rolling Stone. So thank you for watching. Please remember to like the video and leave a comment. I really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe. Bye.